On my 31st birthday, my mother-in-law handed me divorce papers and announced it to everyone at the restaurant. My husband even filmed my reaction for their entertainment. I thanked her, signed them on the spot, and walked out. She had no clue what I had already done. 3 days before my birthday, I caught my mother-in-law, Margaret, with legal documents spread across our kitchen table, her face alight with a satisfaction that chilled me to my core. Little did I know, that strange, predatory smile was just the beginning of a meticulously planned ambush meant to shatter my life, but instead, it became the unexpected catalyst for my ultimate triumph. That morning, the house was eerily quiet as I headed downstairs for coffee before my shift at Romano's restaurant. I expected an empty kitchen, but there she was, Margaret, hunched over official-looking papers, reading intently, glasses perched on her nose. She was making notes in the margins with a red pen, her concentration so intense, so predatory, it unnerved me. The sound of my footsteps on the hardwood made her snap her head up. For a split second, I saw it, not just disapproval or disappointment, but pure, unadulterated satisfaction. It was chilling. She moved with surprising speed for a woman in her 60s, gathering the documents into a neat pile and slipping them into what looked like a regular birthday card envelope. "Good morning, dear," she said, her voice artificially sweet in a way that immediately put me on edge. Dear, Margaret never called me dear. Usually, I was David's wife, or simply she. The sudden endearment felt wrong, like she was testing out a new disguise. The envelope itself was beautiful, pale pink with silver lettering, little butterflies dancing around the edges. It looked expensive, thoughtful, and completely innocent. "I picked this one specifically for you," she purred, watching my reaction like a hawk. I poured my coffee, trying to act casual, asking if she needed help with her paperwork. Margaret's laugh was light and airy, totally unlike her usual measured responses. "Oh, this is something special I've been working on for quite some time. David doesn't even know about it yet." The secrecy intrigued me. In 2 years of marriage, Margaret had never shown interest in gift-giving beyond obligatory holidays. She was practical, direct, not the type for elaborate presentations. The fact that she was putting effort into my birthday felt like progress in our strained relationship. "It's something that will change everything," she continued, placing the envelope carefully in her purse. "I've been consulting with professionals to make sure everything is handled properly. You deserve something meaningful after all this time." Her words filled me with unexpected hope. Maybe, just maybe, Margaret had finally recognized my efforts. Perhaps she'd seen how hard I was trying to find more respectable employment, or how much I truly loved David despite their constant criticism. The idea that she might be planning something special for my 31st birthday made me feel lighter than I had in months. David appeared moments later, dressed for work. He kissed my cheek, grabbed his travel mug, and then exchanged a quick, meaningful look with his mother. A silent communication that excluded me entirely. When I asked if everything was all right, David just smiled and said they were planning something special for my birthday. The rest of that week, Margaret's behavior became bizarrely pleasant. She called twice to confirm my schedule, making sure I'd be free for dinner on my birthday. She even suggested we celebrate at Romano's, my workplace, which utterly shocked me. Margaret had always made excuses to avoid Romano's. "I think it would be meaningful to celebrate where you work," she explained. "It's important that we acknowledge all aspects of your life." The words sounded caring, but there was an unsettling edge in her tone. Margaret didn't speak in sentimental language. This sudden change felt calculated, not genuine. Emma, David's sister, joined in the charade. She'd flash mysterious smiles when Margaret mentioned the birthday plans and volunteered to help with arrangements, despite usually avoiding family events that involved me. Her enthusiasm felt suspicious, but I desperately wanted to believe it was genuine acceptance. David's excitement, too, seemed to grow. He checked his phone constantly, responding to texts with satisfied grins. When I tried to peek, he'd playfully angle the screen away, saying it was surprise business. It all felt like a loving conspiracy, not a threat. The night before my birthday, Margaret called one final time. "Wear something nice," she advised, "but nothing too formal. You'll want to be comfortable for what we have planned." Her voice held an edge of anticipation that I tragically mistook for excitement about finally celebrating me. I spent extra time choosing my outfit, a navy dress that felt professional but approachable. I smoothed every wrinkle, checking every detail, wanting to look perfect for what I hoped would be our breakthrough moment as a family. That evening, David seemed unusually affectionate. He held me close, telling me how much he loved me with an intensity that, in hindsight, felt like a goodbye. "Tomorrow will be a day you'll never forget," he whispered into my hair. I fell asleep feeling cherished and hopeful, completely unaware that his tenderness was actually guilt. The decorated envelope sat in Margaret's purse, waiting to deliver its devastating contents. While I dreamed of acceptance, she was rehearsing her speech about family standards and difficult decisions. I woke up on my 31st birthday believing it would mark my acceptance into David's family. Instead, it became the day Margaret handed me the greatest gift of my life: freedom from their toxic judgment and the chance to discover who I could become without their suffocating limitations. The pattern of their contempt wasn't new. The first family gathering after our honeymoon, David's cousin Michael's graduation party, was my first taste. I spent 2 hours getting ready, choosing a conservative black dress, hoping to blend in. Margaret greeted me with air kisses that never touched my cheeks, then immediately steered me toward a group of relatives I'd never met. "This is David's wife," she announced, pausing deliberately, letting the words hang in the air. "She works in the service industry." Patricia raised her eyebrows knowingly. Cousin Janet made a sympathetic sound that felt more like pity than welcome. "How interesting," Janet said, her smile tight and condescending. "What kind of service work do you do?" Margaret jumped in before I could answer, explaining that I was still figuring out my career path while working temporarily in food service. She made me sound lost and directionless, not employed and hardworking. The conversation continued around me as if I wasn't even there, everyone discussing impressive careers. When someone eventually asked about my background, Margaret smoothly redirected the topic to David's accounting practice. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to breathe away from their suffocating disapproval. In the hallway, I overheard Margaret, "We're hoping she'll find something more suitable soon. David deserves a wife who can contribute to their social position properly." The word stung, reducing my entire identity to my perceived failure to meet their standards. Thanksgiving dinner 3 months later followed the same pattern, but with increased intensity. Margaret had invited extended family, and as we went around the table sharing what we were thankful for, she highlighted everyone's professional achievements, strategically skipping over me entirely. "I'm thankful for Emma's engagement to Dr. Patterson," she beamed, "and for David's growing client base. It's wonderful to see young people establishing themselves professionally." When my turn came, I simply mentioned being grateful for family and good health, desperate to avoid another lecture. Margaret's sister, Patricia, cornered me after dinner, ostensibly to help with dishes, but really to deliver unsolicited advice. "You know, dear, Margaret just wants what's best for David. Have you considered going back to school? There are so many opportunities for women willing to improve themselves." Her words carried the weight of family consensus. They'd all discussed my inadequacies and agreed on solutions. The holidays became exercises in endurance. At Christmas, Margaret gave Emma a beautiful silk scarf and presented me with a book titled Professional Success for Women, wrapped in newspaper instead of proper gift paper. The message was crystal clear. Everyone else received gifts. I received homework assignments on how to become acceptable. David's birthday party in February revealed how deeply the family dynamics had shifted. Margaret planned an elaborate celebration at an upscale restaurant, inviting his professional colleagues and successful friends. I wore my best dress, trying to participate in conversations about business trends, but my contributions were met with polite smiles that quickly faded. When someone asked about my work, David actually stepped in before I could answer. "She's exploring different opportunities right now," he said, avoiding my eyes. His shame about my job had grown so obvious, he couldn't even let me speak for myself. The man who once bragged about my work ethic now treated my employment like a family secret. Emma's engagement party in March brought new levels of social torture. Her college sorority sisters, all successful professional women, asked polite questions about my career. Margaret hovered nearby, ready to redirect attention whenever I mentioned Romanos. She'd interrupt with comments about wedding planning or ask someone else about their job, making my occupation invisible. The worst incident happened during Easter dinner when Margaret's friend Carol, a retired executive, spent the meal discussing her children's impressive careers. When she asked about my background, Margaret actually interrupted my response to explain that I was between opportunities and considering various options for professional growth. I excused myself to the powder room and cried quietly, feeling completely erased from my own life story. Margaret was rewriting my identity to fit her narrative, turning steady employment into temporary confusion, and honest work into something shameful that required explanation or apology. The pattern became predictable and painful. Margaret would strategically position me near people who would inevitably ask about my work, then swoop in to manage the conversation when my answers didn't meet her standards. She'd suggest I was actively job hunting or pursuing education, creating fictional versions of my life that sounded more acceptable to their social circle. David's transformation during these events was the most heartbreaking aspect. The man who'd fallen in love with my independence now looked embarrassed when I mentioned my job. He'd change the subject quickly or make jokes about upgrading my career, as if my current employment was a temporary embarrassment. The family group chat became another source of daily humiliation. Emma would share articles about successful women, always accompanied by comments about inspiration and goals. When I responded positively, she'd follow up with questions about my professional development that felt more like interrogation than conversation. Margaret's friends at the country club were another avenue for public embarrassment. She'd mention my employment status with theatrical sighs, describing my job as David's burden that the family was helping him handle. When these women encountered me at social events, their pitying expressions and overly encouraging comments about finding my path made it clear Margaret had portrayed me as a project, not a person. The constant criticism began affecting how I saw myself. Margaret's comments about my appearance made me second-guess every outfit, every makeup decision. I started shopping for clothes I couldn't afford, desperately trying to look like the professional women she obviously preferred. My credit card balance grew while my self-confidence shrank. By the spring of our second year of marriage, I'd become a completely different person than the confident woman David had married. Margaret's systematic campaign of disapproval had succeeded in making me question my worth, my choices, and my place in David's life. Every family interaction reinforced their message. I was a temporary embarrassment, not a permanent family member. The breaking point arrived during a phone conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Margaret was talking to her friend Helen about David's marriage, and her words cut through me with surgical precision. I keep praying he'll come to his senses before it's too late. He's such a good boy, and he deserves someone who can enhance his life rather than hold him back. Standing in my own hallway, listening to my mother-in-law pray for my marriage's destruction, I finally understood. Acceptance was never going to be possible. Margaret didn't just disapprove of my job, she disapproved of my existence in David's life. The battle I'd been fighting was rigged from the beginning, designed to wear me down until I either transformed completely or disappeared entirely. It was a punch to the gut, shattering any illusion that her kindness, however rare, was ever genuine. The morning after hearing Margaret's devastating phone call, I sat at my laptop with renewed determination. If she was praying for David to leave me, I'd prove her wrong by becoming the professional woman she claimed he deserved. Job search websites glowed on my screen as I created profiles on every platform: LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, and smaller local sites. My resume looked pathetic, spread across one page: 3 years at Romano's restaurant, a high school diploma, and scattered customer service experience. I stared at the blank sections where college degrees and professional accomplishments should have been, feeling Margaret's voice echo in my head about real qualifications. I rewrote my job descriptions 5 times, trying to make serving tables sound like executive experience. Managed multiple client relationships simultaneously, while maintaining high satisfaction ratings. Coordinated complex service delivery under time-sensitive conditions. The words felt fake and inflated, but online articles promised strategic language could bridge experience gaps. Cover letters became my obsession. I'd wake up early to craft personalized messages for administrative assistant positions, customer service roles, and entry-level office jobs across 3 counties. Each letter took an hour, explaining how my restaurant background had prepared me for professional challenges, highlighting reliability, communication skills, and ability to work under pressure. The first rejection email arrived within hours of my application to a dental office. "Thank you for your interest, but we're seeking candidates with medical office experience." The second came from an insurance company. "We require applicants with college-level education for this role." By the end of the first week, my inbox overflowed with polite dismissals. I wasn't qualified for anything beyond my current situation. David found me crying over my laptop one evening. "Maybe you're aiming too high too fast," he suggested, rubbing my shoulders. "There's nothing wrong with starting smaller." His words were meant to comfort, but they echoed his mother's constant message: lower your expectations, don't raise your qualifications. The interview at Henderson Insurance Company became my first real-world lesson in professional humiliation. The office building itself intimidated me. Women in sharp suits clicked across marble floors in expensive heels, carrying leather briefcases. I felt utterly underdressed. Mrs. Henderson, the hiring manager, looked at my resume for exactly 30 seconds before setting it aside. "Your background is quite limited for this position," she said, not bothering to hide her disappointment. "We typically hire candidates with insurance experience or business degrees. What made you think you'd be qualified for account management?" My carefully prepared answers about transferable skills and eagerness to learn fell flat. Mrs. Henderson actually checked her watch while I spoke, making it clear my time, and hers, was being wasted. "Perhaps you should consider positions more aligned with your current skill set," she suggested, ending the interview 15 minutes early. The drive home from that disaster was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in the parking lot afterward, replaying every awkward moment, cringing at my naive optimism. Margaret's voice played in my head like a broken record. Community college enrollment became my next desperate strategy. The evening business program promised the credentials Margaret claimed I lacked. I registered for Introduction to Business, Basic Accounting, and Professional Communication, paying fees with money I'd saved for new furniture. My first night revealed how unprepared I was for academic challenges. The other students were mostly working professionals, confidently discussing corporate experiences while I sat quietly, hoping no one would ask about my background. Professor Martinez assigned a project about professional networking. I had no connections in business. While classmates discussed their mentors, I realized how isolated I was from the professional world. David's reaction to my college enrollment was lukewarm. "Are you sure this is worth the time and money?" he asked. "Maybe you should focus on finding work first." His practical concerns made sense financially, but his lack of enthusiasm felt like another vote of no confidence. My performance at Romano's began declining. Late-night studying left me tired during busy shifts, and constant rejection made me lose the cheerful energy customers appreciated. I'd space out while taking orders, distracted by interview prep or homework. Mr. Romano noticed. "You seem troubled lately," he said, genuine concern in his voice. "Is everything all right at home?" I wanted to confess everything, but how could I explain David's family was systematically destroying my confidence? I blamed general stress. Maria, the head cook, became my unofficial therapist. She'd noticed my red eyes and would wordlessly hand me extra coffee. "Education is good," she said one day, "but don't let anyone make you ashamed of honest work." The financial pressure of my improvement campaign created new problems. Interview clothes, gas, textbooks, tuition. It strained our already tight budget. David started questioning every purchase. "Maybe we should take a break from all this," he suggested after reviewing credit card statements. "You're spending more money trying to get jobs than you'd earn in the first few months." His practical observation felt like abandonment. The community college library became my refuge. I'd sit in quiet corners, surrounded by business textbooks, trying to absorb knowledge that might make me worthy. My grades were excellent, proving I had the intelligence Margaret claimed I lacked. Professor Martinez praised my assignments, asking me to share my customer service insights. For 3 hours each week, I felt valued, but those feelings evaporated the moment I returned home. The spring semester brought advanced business communication and my first presentation. Standing in front of the class, explaining customer relationship management principles I'd learned through restaurant work, I felt confident and knowledgeable. My classmates asked thoughtful questions, genuinely interested. That confidence lasted until I shared my academic success with David over dinner. "That's great," he said absently, scrolling through his phone. "Maybe Margaret will be impressed when you finish the program." His response reduced my achievement to ammunition in the ongoing war for his mother's approval. The semester ended with strong grades and renewed hope, but job applications continued yielding the same rejections. Insufficient experience. Looking for candidates with degree completion. Position requires corporate background. Each email reinforced the message that education alone wouldn't bridge the gap. Margaret's reaction to my academic progress was predictably dismissive. "Community college is a good start," she said when David mentioned my grades. Though real career advancement usually requires proper university education. Even my success became evidence of inadequacy in her relentless campaign. Summer arrived with my determination intact. Despite Margaret's dismissive comments, I created spreadsheets to track applications, color-coding them. Within 3 weeks, my screen was overwhelmed with red cells, each representing another slammed door. The rejection from Pinnacle Marketing stung particularly. I'd driven 45 minutes for an interview, wearing a blazer bought specifically for the occasion. The HR director glanced at my resume, asked 2 questions about restaurant experience, then spent 10 minutes explaining why they needed someone with a traditional business background. "Your customer service skills are admirable," she said, "but this position requires strategic thinking and analytical capabilities that come from corporate experience." She might as well have told me waitresses couldn't think properly. I thanked her, feeling smaller than when I arrived. The folder of rejection letters grew thick enough to require a rubber band. Each form response was slightly different, but the message was the same. I wasn't good enough. Margaret's weekly phone calls became sessions of barely concealed gloating. "How's the job search going, dear?" she'd ask. When I admitted another week without responses, she'd make sympathetic sounds that felt more like celebration. "These things take patience," she'd say. "Not everyone is cut out for certain types of work." The interview at Westfield Insurance was the most humiliating. The receptionist made me wait 2 hours. When Mr. Westfield finally called me in, he seemed surprised. "Oh, right, the restaurant girl," he said. He asked me to complete a computer skills assessment involving spreadsheet functions I'd never seen. My confusion was obvious. "This position requires technical competency," he explained, not unkindly, but firmly. "Perhaps you should consider roles that better match your current skill level." The suggestion that I should stay in my lane felt like Margaret speaking through a stranger's mouth. David started noticing my defeated returns from interviews. "How did it go today?" he'd ask when I came home with slumped shoulders. I began editing my stories, removing the most humiliating details to preserve what remained of his respect. When the hiring manager at Thompson Real Estate laughed at my salary expectations, I told David the interview went pretty well. The community college campus became my sanctuary during evening classes. Professor Martinez treated me with respect, praising my assignments. My classmates, mostly working adults, didn't judge my restaurant background. Business communication class taught me to analyze my failures objectively. My presentations earned high marks, and Professor Martinez often used my customer service examples. "Your practical experience provides valuable perspective," she told the class, making me feel knowledgeable instead of inadequate for the first time in months. But academic success didn't translate to employment. The rejection from Coastal Bank arrived the same week I received an A on my midterm. "While your educational efforts are commendable, we require candidates with banking experience for this entry-level position." The irony was crushing. Romano's provided the only stability. Mr. Romano noticed my distraction. "You've been different lately," he observed. "Is everything okay at home?" I blamed general stress. He respected my privacy, but quietly gave me easier sections and extra breaks. Maria became my unexpected emotional support. "They tried to make you think you're not good enough," she said one evening. "But look around here. You handle 6 tables during rush hour, remember every order, and keep customers happy even when they're difficult. That takes intelligence and skill they don't teach in fancy schools." Tony, the youngest staff member, offered encouragement. "You're the smartest person here. Those companies don't know what they're missing." His faith felt precious because it came without conditions. The financial strain affected our marriage. Interview clothes, gas, parking, tuition, our savings account shrunk. David watched with growing concern. "Maybe you should take a break from the applications," he suggested. His suggestion felt like surrender to Margaret's timeline. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake replaying interview mistakes, wondering what I could have said differently. My appetite disappeared. Margaret noticed during monthly family dinner, commenting that I looked drawn and tired lately, with false concern that felt more like satisfaction. Even my physical appearance became evidence of my failure. The stack of rejection letters grew so thick I moved them to a larger folder. Each represented hours of hope and disappointment. By autumn, I'd applied to 47 positions. The rejections stung with fresh intensity each time. Margaret's predictions seemed accurate. Then, one Monday afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of another failed week. 47 rejections. Margaret's latest dismissive comment. David's growing impatience. The laundry basket sat beside me, filled with clothes that represented my shrinking world. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Telemarketer calls were so frequent, I usually ignored them. But something made me swipe to answer. Maybe I was hoping for a miracle. "Hello. Is this Jennifer?" The woman's voice was professional but warm, speaking my name like it mattered. "This is Jessica Martinez from Grand Plaza Hotel's Human Resources Department. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." My heart stopped. Grand Plaza Hotel? I remembered submitting that application 6 months ago during a desperate evening, casting it into the void of online job boards with little hope. We received your application for our guest services coordinator position, Jessica continued, and I was wondering if you're still interested in discussing opportunities with our team. Her words sounded impossible. Someone was actually calling me about a job, treating my application like it had value. I sat down the shirt I'd been folding, my hands trembling. Yes, absolutely, I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm very interested. Jessica's laugh was genuine. Wonderful. I have to tell you, your restaurant experience really caught our attention. We found that candidates with your background often excel in hospitality because you understand customer service from the ground up. Her words were revolutionary. Someone was praising my waitressing experience, not apologizing for it. Jessica explained that Grand Plaza specialized in exceptional guest experiences, valuing employees who understood service excellence through practical application, not just theoretical training. My years at Romano's weren't a liability, they were credentials. We offer comprehensive training programs for career development, she continued, including management track opportunities. Our benefits package includes health insurance, dental coverage, retirement planning, and educational assistance for professional development courses. The benefits surpassed anything I'd imagined. At Romano's, health insurance was a luxury. The idea of an employer investing in my education instead of questioning my qualifications felt foreign and wonderful. There's one more aspect that might interest you, Jessica said, her voice excited. The role includes housing in our employee residential building. A fully furnished apartment with utilities included, just a 5-minute walk from the hotel. I had to sit down. Free housing, independence from David's family's constant criticism, and financial pressure. 3 hours away from Margaret's disapproving presence felt like an impossible dream that someone was offering as reality. The distance would mean starting fresh, where nobody knew about my year of failures. The salary ranges $42,000 to $48,000 annually, she added. My income from Romano's barely reached $30,000. This job offered financial independence that would transform my entire life. I realize this might be a big decision since you'd be relocating, Jessica said, but we're impressed with your background and think you'd be an excellent fit. Would you be interested in scheduling a phone interview later this week? My mind raced. Professional respect, financial security, physical distance from Margaret's toxicity, and a chance to prove my worth in an environment that valued my existing skills. Everything I'd been desperately seeking was being offered by someone who saw potential instead of limitations. I would love to schedule an interview, I said, my voice stronger than it had been in months. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet kitchen, feeling emotions I'd almost forgotten. Hope bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. The irony wasn't lost on me. Margaret's birthday envelope sat somewhere in this house, filled with legal documents designed to destroy my place in this family. Meanwhile, I now possessed information that would prove every negative thing she'd ever said about my potential was completely wrong. The timing felt like cosmic justice. I wanted to call David immediately, but something held me back. This opportunity was mine alone, discovered through my own efforts, despite his family's constant discouragement. For the first time in our marriage, I had something valuable that didn't require their approval. The job offer represented more than employment. It was vindication. Jessica Martinez had seen qualities in my application that dozens of other employers had missed. Someone finally recognized my restaurant experience as valuable. I decided to keep the news secret until my birthday celebration. Margaret had spent 2 years trying to prove I wasn't good enough. Now I could reveal that not only was I good enough, but I was moving beyond their limited vision. The decorated envelope she prepared would pale in comparison to the real gift I'd be sharing. That evening, I moved through my routine at Romano's with renewed energy. My regular customers noticed the change. Mrs. Patterson, who came in every Monday, said I looked happier than she'd seen me in months. The secret knowledge of my opportunity felt powerful and precious. While Margaret prepared whatever surprise she thought would devastate me, I was holding information that would transform our entire dynamic. For once, I would be the one with shocking news to share. 3 days stretched ahead. 3 days to savor the knowledge that everything was about to change. Tuesday morning brought my phone interview with Jessica Martinez. I locked myself in our bedroom while David was at work. The conversation exceeded every hope. Jessica's questions focused on scenarios I could answer confidently, handling difficult customers, managing multiple priorities, maintaining service excellence. Your references from Romano's restaurant are glowing, she said. Mr. Romano spoke very highly of your reliability and customer relationship skills. That's exactly the foundation we build on here at Grand Plaza Hotel. Hearing my current employer praise me to a potential new one felt like vindication after months of being told my experience was inadequate. The formal job offer arrived via email that afternoon. The PDF document was official and beautiful, with the hotel's elegant letterhead and detailed terms. Guest Services Coordinator, starting salary $45,000 annually, comprehensive benefits, and employee housing included. I printed 3 copies, folding one carefully to carry in my purse like a talisman. That evening at Romano's, I moved through my shift with an energy I hadn't felt in months. Every customer interaction reminded me that I was good at this work. You seem different tonight, Maria observed during our break. More like yourself again. She was right. The weight of constant inadequacy had lifted. For the first time since Margaret's campaign began, I felt worthy of the space I occupied in the world. David's call Wednesday morning changed the entire trajectory of my secret planning. Mom wants to take you out for your birthday tomorrow, he said, excitement obvious. She suggested Romano's since you're always talking about how much you love working there. His interpretation of Margaret's choice made perfect sense. Finally, she was acknowledging my workplace instead of dismissing it. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely touched by what seemed like progress. Does this mean she's finally accepting my job? David's pause lasted just long enough to plant seeds of hope that would make tomorrow's revelation even more meaningful. I think she's beginning to understand what makes you happy, he said carefully. She wants this birthday to be special. His words felt like confirmation that family dynamics were shifting in my favor. Combined with my secret job offer, everything seemed to align for a perfect celebration of new beginnings. Emma's text added to my excitement. Can't wait for tomorrow night. This birthday will definitely be memorable. Her enthusiasm seemed genuine for the first time. I spent Wednesday evening planning exactly how I'd reveal my news. The job offer letter sat in my jewelry box, waiting for the perfect moment. I practiced different approaches in the bathroom mirror. I have some exciting news to share, I rehearsed, watching my reflection. 3 days ago, I received a job offer from Grand Plaza Hotel. The words felt powerful and transformative, promising to rewrite the narrative Margaret had created about my professional inadequacy. I imagined her shocked expression, David's proud smile, and Emma's grudging respect. Thursday morning shopping became an adventure in self-expression. I chose a navy dress with subtle elegance that would photograph well. The fabric felt expensive, the cut flattering. I wanted to look like the professional woman I was about to become. My hair appointment at Sandra's salon was a luxury I justified as an investment in my future image. Sandra noticed my improved mood immediately. You're glowing today, she said. Something good must be happening. Something wonderful, I confirmed. I can't talk about it yet, but tonight is going to change everything. Sandra's knowing smile in the mirror made me feel like we were conspirators. The phone interview confirmation from Jessica had been brief, but reassuring. We're moving forward with the hiring process, pending your acceptance. We'd like you to start in 2 weeks. Does that timeline work? 2 weeks felt perfect. Enough time to process this major life change, but soon enough to escape Margaret's influence. I practiced my announcement during the drive to Romano's, speaking to my reflection at red lights. I want to share some wonderful news with all of you. I've been offered a position at Grand Plaza Hotel. The words felt foreign and exciting, like trying on clothes that were too expensive but fit perfectly. My anticipation grew as I parked outside the restaurant. Mr. Romano waved from behind the counter, probably wondering why I was arriving as a customer. Tonight, I'd be able to tell him about my career advancement while thanking him. The secret job offer had given me armor against Margaret's usual criticism. When she'd commented on Tuesday about my dead-end situation, I'd simply smiled and said things were looking up. When she'd mentioned on Wednesday that David needed a wife who could contribute meaningfully to their social position, I'd agreed completely, knowing I was about to exceed her wildest expectations. Emma's social media posts about ambitious women had bounced off me harmlessly. Soon she'd see I'd been ambitious all along. David's excitement about tonight had grown increasingly obvious. His secretive behavior felt loving and conspiratorial rather than threatening. The jewelry box in our bedroom held my job offer letter like a secret weapon, waiting for deployment. Tonight, that folded document would transform me from Margaret's disappointing daughter-in-law into a professional success story. The woman who'd spent a year praying for my failure was about to witness my greatest triumph. Walking toward Romano's entrance for my birthday celebration, I felt lighter than I had since our wedding day. The secret knowledge of my future gave me confidence to face whatever family dynamics awaited inside. Margaret's decorated envelope might contain family paperwork, but my purse held the key to freedom, respect, and vindication. The bell above Romano's entrance chimed as I pushed through the familiar glass door, my family following behind me into the warm, welcoming atmosphere I'd called my second home for 3 years. The evening light filtered through checkered curtains, casting golden shadows across tables where I'd served countless meals. "Jennifer." Mr. Romano's voice boomed across the dining room. His weathered face broke into the genuine smile I'd grown to treasure. He hurried over, wiping his hands on his apron. "This must be the birthday celebration you mentioned." "Mr. Romano, I'd like you to meet my family," I said with pride that surprised even me. "This is my husband, David, his mother, Margaret, and his sister, Emma." Mr. Romano shook hands warmly with each of them. I felt grateful that Margaret would finally see the respect and affection I'd earned in this place. Margaret's smile was polite, but strained as she surveyed the modest dining room with critical eyes. The red vinyl booths, mismatched chairs, and handwritten specials board clearly didn't meet her usual standards, but she was here, making an effort, and that felt like progress. "We'll take good care of you tonight," Mr. Romano promised, leading us to the corner booth I'd suggested. Maria caught my eye from the kitchen window and winked. Tony gave me a thumbs up and mouthed happy birthday. Settling into the booth felt surreal. I'd served countless meals at this very table, but now I sat as a guest. Margaret examined the laminated menu with visible skepticism, holding it like it might contaminate her hands. Emma scrolled through her phone, occasionally exchanging meaningful looks with David. "The chicken parmesan is excellent here," I suggested, trying to bridge the gap. "Mr. Romano's wife makes the sauce from her grandmother's recipe." Margaret nodded politely, but ordered the most expensive item on the menu, lobster ravioli, which wasn't even one of our signature dishes. David's behavior throughout dinner struck me as nervous excitement. He kept checking his phone under the table, responding to texts with quick thumbs. "Are you expecting an important call?" I asked when his phone buzzed for the 4th time. David glanced at Margaret before answering, receiving some kind of silent approval. "Just coordinating some surprise elements for tonight," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Margaret's conversation felt artificial and rehearsed. She asked questions about my community college classes with false interest, nodding along while clearly thinking about something else entirely. Her usual criticism was absent, replaced by an odd pleasantness that should have warned me, but instead filled me with hope. "You've been working so hard to improve yourself," Margaret said as we waited for our main courses. "It's admirable how determined you've been despite all the challenges." Her words sounded supportive, but something in her tone made them feel like a setup. Emma snorted quietly, quickly covering it with a cough. The birthday cake appeared as we finished dinner, carried by Sandra, one of the newer servers. She placed it carefully in front of me, smiling warmly as the entire restaurant began singing "Happy Birthday." Regular customers joined in, creating a chorus of genuine affection. "Make a wish," David said, positioning his phone to capture the moment. I closed my eyes and wished for the courage to share my job offer news gracefully. The candles flickered as I blew them out. Margaret's applause was enthusiastic, but hollow. She reached into her designer purse with theatrical ceremony, withdrawing the decorated envelope. "We have a special gift for you," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across nearby tables. "From all of us," she continued, holding the envelope high enough for other diners to see. The pink paper with silver butterflies looked festive and innocent. Other customers turned to watch, probably thinking how lucky I was. Emma's phone appeared in her hands, also positioned to record. David adjusted his angle to capture my face more clearly. Their coordination was perfect, suggesting they'd rehearsed this. "Open it," Margaret urged, her eyes bright with anticipation. The envelope felt heavier than expected. The paper tore easily, revealing official documents folded neatly inside. Legal letterhead caught my eye first, followed by formal language that took several seconds to process. "Petition for dissolution of marriage" sat at the top of the first page in bold, imposing letters. My breath caught in my throat. "Divorce papers. On my birthday. In front of my coworkers and regular customers." The decorated envelope was a weapon designed for maximum destruction of my dignity. The restaurant continued buzzing with normal dinner conversation, but our corner booth existed in a bubble of tension so thick I could barely breathe. Margaret's satisfied expression confirmed this wasn't a mistake. This was exactly what she'd planned when I'd caught her at our kitchen table. David's phone remained steady, still recording my reaction for posterity. My humiliation was their entertainment, carefully orchestrated and professionally documented. The papers felt heavy in my trembling hands as I looked up at three faces, watching me with eager anticipation. Margaret's smile was triumphant. Emma's expression was gleeful. David looked nervous but excited. They had turned my birthday into their victory celebration, using my own workplace as the stage for my public destruction. Time seemed to slow. My mind processed the magnitude of what they'd planned. But instead of the devastation they expected, I felt something entirely different washing over me: clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity about who these people truly were and what this moment actually meant. Margaret's smile was radiant with satisfaction. Her eyes sparkled with the joy of someone who'd successfully executed a plan. Emma leaned forward, phone still recording, hungry for the breakdown they'd orchestrated. David's camera remained focused on my face, waiting for tears that would never come. The restaurant's ambient noise faded into background whispers. Mrs. Patterson, my regular Tuesday customer, turned in her chair for a better view. The young couple at table 12 stopped their conversation mid-sentence, drawn by the tension. I looked down at the legal documents again, noting the careful preparation. Someone had hired an attorney, filed paperwork, and coordinated timing to maximize my humiliation. They'd even brought a pen, anticipating my compliance. Well, Margaret prompted, when my silence stretched longer than she'd expected. Aren't you going to say something? Her voice carried across the quiet restaurant, inviting everyone to witness my reaction. The expectation was clear. I was supposed to beg, cry, or create a scene. Instead, I reached for the pen they'd provided and signed my name. My handwriting was steadier than it had been in months. The ink flowed smoothly across the signature line, marking the end of a marriage, but also the beginning of something they couldn't imagine. Margaret's triumphant expression faltered slightly as I calmly folded the papers and returned them to their decorative envelope. David's phone wavered in his hands as confusion replaced anticipation. "That's it?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "You're not going to fight this or ask questions?" His disappointment was palpable. My calm acceptance wasn't providing the entertainment value they'd anticipated. "Thank you," I said, standing up from the booth with dignity intact. "This is actually the most generous gift you could have given me." Margaret's face shifted from satisfaction to bewilderment as I reached into my purse and withdrew my own envelope, the official job offer letter from Grand Plaza Hotel. "I have some news to share as well," I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the hushed restaurant. 3 days ago, I was offered a position as guest services coordinator at Grand Plaza Hotel. The salary is $45,000 annually, with full benefits and housing included. The words felt powerful leaving my lips, each one landing with precision in the silence that followed. Margaret's mouth opened slightly, but no sound emerged. Emma's phone slipped in her grasp before she recovered and continued recording, though her expression had shifted from gleeful anticipation to stunned disbelief. David's camera captured his own shocked face in the black screen as he forgot to keep filming my reaction. "The position starts in 2 weeks," I continued, enjoying the weight of their attention for reasons completely different from what they'd planned. "It's in another city, about 3 hours from here. A fresh start with people who value restaurant experience and customer service skills." Each detail was a small victory over their months of criticism and dismissal. The restaurant erupted as my words sank in. Mr. Romano's voice boomed across the dining room. "Jennifer, that's wonderful news." Maria's face appeared in the kitchen window, her smile broad with genuine pride. "You deserve this," she called out, her accent thick with emotion. Tony dropped his cleaning cloth and started clapping, his enthusiasm infectious as other staff members joined in. The sound of applause filled Romano's as my coworkers celebrated news that transformed their colleagues' humiliation into triumph. Regular customers who'd watched me work through difficult months stood up, adding their voices to the celebration. Mrs. Patterson, who'd witnessed my declining mood, raised her water glass. "To Jennifer and her bright future," she declared, prompting other diners to join her impromptu celebration. The restaurant became a community rallying around someone they'd watched struggle. Their genuine joy drowned out the family who'd tried to destroy me. Margaret's face cycled through emotions I'd never seen before. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then something that looked disturbingly like fear. She'd expected to deliver a devastating blow to a vulnerable woman, not hand freedom to someone who'd already secured her independence. Her carefully planned moment of triumph was collapsing into public embarrassment. "You knew about this job when you signed those papers?" David asked, his voice strained with the realization that I'd outmaneuvered them. His phone hung forgotten in his lap as he processed that his wife had just accepted divorce while holding a career opportunity that exceeded every criticism his family had leveled against me. I received the offer 3 days ago, I confirmed, watching his face pale as the timeline clicked into place. The same day, you all started acting mysteriously excited about my birthday celebration. Emma's phone captured David's growing understanding that their surprise had backfired spectacularly. The irony was perfect and devastating. Margaret had handed me divorce papers, expecting to break me, but she'd actually freed me to pursue the professional respect she'd always claimed I couldn't achieve. Their cruelty had eliminated the only obstacle preventing me from accepting an opportunity that would prove every negative thing they'd said about my potential was wrong. The training program includes management development, I added, pulling the official letter from my purse to show them. They specifically recruited me because of my restaurant background. Apparently, my experience here at Romano's demonstrates exactly the skills they value for advancement in hospitality management. Mr. Romano appeared beside our table, his face glowing with pride. Jennifer is one of our finest employees, he told Margaret directly. Smart, dedicated, and respected by everyone here. This hotel is lucky to have her. His words carried the weight of 3 years watching me work with integrity and skill. Margaret's silence was deafening. The woman who'd spent 2 years lecturing me about professional inadequacy now sat speechless as my coworkers celebrated an achievement that invalidated every criticism she'd made. Her decorated envelope had delivered my freedom instead of my destruction. Emma lowered her phone slowly, finally understanding that their perfectly planned ambush had become my moment of vindication. The video they'd intended to share as entertainment would now document their own failure to recognize worth that others had discovered and valued. David stared at the job offer letter like it was written in a foreign language. 2 years of supporting his mother's criticism had just cost him a wife who was walking away with professional success, financial independence, and the moral high ground he'd helped them steal from me. The silence that followed my job announcement stretched across Romano's dining room like a held breath. I stood beside our corner booth, divorce papers in one hand and my future in the other, watching Margaret's face cycle through emotions she'd never shown before. The woman who'd orchestrated this public execution now sat speechless, her satisfied smile frozen into something resembling panic. David's phone remained motionless, its black screen reflecting his stunned expression. The video he'd been so eager to capture had become evidence of his own miscalculation rather than my humiliation. His finger hovered over the record button, uncertain whether to continue documenting a moment that was spiraling beyond their control. You planned this, Margaret finally whispered, her voice barely audible. You knew about the divorce papers. Her accusation carried no conviction, because she was beginning to understand that my calm reaction wasn't planned. It was genuine relief disguised as composure. I planned nothing, I replied, my voice steady and clear enough for nearby tables to hear. You handed me freedom I didn't even know I wanted. 3 days ago, while you were preparing those papers, I received validation that everything you've said about my limitations was wrong. The timing was perfect, almost supernatural in its irony. Emma's phone captured her mother's growing realization that their surprise had backfired completely. Margaret had expected tears, pleas for forgiveness, or desperate attempts to salvage our marriage. Instead, she'd handed liberation to someone who was already planning to leave their toxic judgment behind forever. $45,000, I repeated, letting the number sink into their consciousness. Plus benefits, housing, and career advancement opportunities. The management training program starts with my employment. Each detail was a small explosion in their narrative about my professional inadequacy. Mr. Romano reached our table, his weathered hands clasping mine with fatherly pride. Jennifer, this is incredible news, he said loudly. Grand Plaza Hotel is getting someone special. We're going to miss you terribly, but this opportunity is exactly what you deserve. His words carried the weight of 3 years, watching me work with integrity. Mr. Romano's public endorsement validated my character in front of witnesses who just observed Margaret's cruelty. Maria emerged from the kitchen, flowers still dusting her apron. You're going to be amazing, she called out. Show them what Romano's girls can do when given real chances. Her pride felt maternal and protective. Tony appeared beside Maria, beaming. This is the best birthday surprise ever. You're going to run that whole hotel someday. His enthusiasm was infectious, spreading through the staff. Regular customers began approaching our table, drawn by the celebration. Mrs. Chin, who always requested my section, squeezed my shoulder. Good for you, honey. You always seemed too smart. First she paused, glancing at Margaret, for staying in one place forever. The contrast between my supporters and David's family became stark. Romano's staff and customers surrounded me with genuine affection. Meanwhile, Margaret, David, and Emma remained frozen at their table, processing how their moment of triumph had transformed into public embarrassment. "When do you start?" Mr. Romano asked, drawing more staff into our growing circle. 2 weeks, I answered, watching Margaret's face pale further. She was beginning to understand that I'd been planning my escape while she was planning my destruction. The divorce papers she'd prepared as my ending were actually clearing the path for my new beginning. David finally found his voice, strained and uncertain. "You're really leaving?" Just like that. His question revealed how little he understood the damage his family had inflicted. "I'm really free," I corrected, emphasizing the word that captured what this moment truly meant. Free to work where I'm valued, live where I'm respected, and build relationships with people who celebrate my success instead of planning my failure. Margaret attempted to regain control, her voice rising slightly. "This is all very sudden, dear. Perhaps you should think carefully before making such drastic decisions." The endearment sounded hollow and desperate. "I've been thinking for 2 years," I replied, meeting her gaze directly. Every criticism, every comparison to David's ex-girlfriend, every suggestion that I wasn't good enough for this family, all of it led me to this moment. "You were right about one thing, Margaret. I do deserve better." The restaurant's applause grew louder. Other diners had pieced together enough of the situation to understand they were witnessing someone's liberation. "The beautiful thing about timing," I continued, my voice growing stronger, "is that your gift of divorce papers arrived exactly when I was ready to accept freedom. I don't have to choose between my marriage and my self-respect anymore. You've made that decision beautifully simple." Emma's recording captured her family's growing discomfort as they realized their roles had reversed. They'd come as executioners, but found themselves defendants. Margaret's purse sat open beside her, the decorative envelope looking ridiculous and childish. Her weapon had become evidence of her own cruelty, preserved in video. The weight of 2 years of criticism and conditional acceptance lifted from my shoulders as I prepared to leave Romano's for the final time as their victim. Every snide comment, every comparison, every suggestion that I wasn't worthy evaporated in the face of professional validation and genuine community support. David's attempt to process what had just happened played out across his features like a slow-motion revelation. His mother's birthday gift had just cost him a wife who was walking away with dignity, success, and freedom. The recording in his hands would forever document his family's cruelty and his own complicity. Margaret sat motionless, her satisfied smile completely erased by the realization that her perfectly planned revenge had become my perfect escape. The decorated envelope beside her purse looked pathetic and impotent, its innocent butterflies mocking the darkness of its intended purpose. I walked out of Romano's restaurant that night, carrying nothing but my purse and my dignity, leaving behind a family that had just revealed their true nature to an entire room of witnesses. The cool evening air felt cleaner than it had in months, and each step toward my car marked another moment of distance from people who'd never deserved my efforts. 2 weeks later, I stood in the marble lobby of Grand Plaza Hotel, wearing a professional uniform that actually felt like armor. The nameplate on my chest read Jennifer Walsh, Guest Services Coordinator, an elegant script that made me smile every time I caught my reflection. My maiden name had returned along with my self-respect. The employee residential building became my sanctuary. My furnished apartment was small but beautifully designed. No one criticized my choices, questioned my worth, or made me feel like an unwelcome guest in my own home. Jessica Martinez became more than my supervisor. She became a mentor who saw leadership potential that Margaret had spent 2 years trying to convince me didn't exist. During my first month, Jessica assigned me to handle VIP guest relations, trusting my Romano's experience. "Your restaurant background gives you instincts other coordinators have to learn through training," Jessica explained. "You read people naturally, anticipate needs before they're expressed, and handle pressure without losing your composure. Those skills are exactly what luxury hospitality requires." The management training program opened doors I'd never imagined. Corporate communications seminars taught me business language that made my community college courses feel like elementary preparation. Leadership workshops revealed strengths I'd possessed all along, but had been taught to doubt under Margaret's constant criticism. My first promotion to assistant guest services manager came 4 months after starting, accompanied by a salary increase that pushed my annual income above $50,000. The raise meant I could afford luxuries I'd only dreamed about: quality clothes, regular salon appointments, and savings accounts that actually grew. Word of my success began filtering back through mutual acquaintances. Linda, Margaret's country club friend, happened to stay at Grand Plaza Hotel during a business trip. She recognized my name on the staff directory and specifically requested my assistance. "You're David's ex-wife, aren't you?" Linda asked during our consultation. "Margaret mentioned you worked in hospitality, but she never said you were management at such a prestigious hotel." Her surprise was genuine and telling. Margaret had obviously downplayed my achievements. Linda's glowing review of my professional service reached Margaret through their social network within days. The woman who dismissed me as a mere waitress had to hear detailed praise of my competence from her own friends. My success was becoming impossible for Margaret to minimize or explain away. David's attempts to reconnect began arriving through social media messages I never answered. His texts grew increasingly desperate as he realized what he'd lost. But Margaret's lessons about recognizing value only after destruction had taught me not to trust people who celebrated my perceived failures. His regret felt hollow compared to the genuine respect I'd found. The divorce settlement proceedings worked entirely in my favor thanks to their own documentation. David's video recording of the birthday ambush became evidence of planned emotional cruelty that his attorney couldn't explain away. No judge would award alimony or shared assets to someone who'd orchestrated public humiliation for entertainment purposes. Margaret's legal strategy backfired as completely as her birthday surprise. The decorated envelope she'd prepared so carefully became Exhibit A in proceedings that painted her as the architect of family dysfunction. Her own attention to detail, the timing, the location, the coordination, proved premeditation that protected me from financial obligations. 6 months after that night at Romano's, I was promoted again to guest services manager, supervising a team of 12 coordinators. The position came with a company car, an expense account, and a salary approaching $60,000 annually. Every milestone validated Jessica's initial assessment of my potential and contradicted Margaret's predictions about my limitations. The hotel's annual employee recognition ceremony became my moment of ultimate vindication. Standing on stage, accepting an award for exceptional customer satisfaction scores, I thought about Margaret's phone conversation where she'd prayed for David to come to his senses. Her prayers had been answered in ways she never intended. My acceptance speech was brief, but meaningful, thanking my team and acknowledging the restaurant experience that had prepared me for hospitality excellence. The audience of hotel executives and community business leaders applauded someone Margaret had dismissed as unworthy of professional consideration. Their respect felt earned, not demanded, genuine, not conditional. Emma's social media posts about ambitious women had stopped entirely after my promotion announcements began appearing in local business publications. The passive-aggressive commentary felt ridiculous when directed at someone who was achieving measurable success through determination and skill. David's LinkedIn connection request arrived the same week as my manager promotion, suggesting he was tracking my professional advancement. His attempt to reconnect professionally felt pathetic and transparent. The man who'd recorded my expected humiliation now wanted association with my actual success. The greatest satisfaction came from living well without needing their approval or acknowledgement. My happiness was complete and self-contained, built on genuine achievements and authentic relationships. Margaret's judgment had become irrelevant. My new colleagues respected my opinions, valued my contributions, and trusted my leadership. The professional environment Margaret claimed I could never access had welcomed me warmly and rewarded my efforts. Every day at Grand Plaza Hotel confirmed that her assessment of my potential had been completely wrong. The ultimate revenge wasn't causing them pain. It was proving their cruelty had been based on jealousy and insecurity rather than an accurate evaluation of my character or capabilities. Margaret's need to diminish me had revealed more about her limitations than mine. Her birthday gift of divorce papers had freed me to discover success that existed far beyond her narrow vision of acceptable achievement. Standing in my corner office 18 months after that night at Romano's, I looked out at the city skyline and felt grateful for every criticism that had pushed me toward independence. Margaret's decorated envelope had contained the greatest gift possible: liberation from people who'd never deserved the effort I'd spent trying to earn their love. They tried to break me, but all they did was free me.